Hey everyone, Jared Gatsby, your local real estate superhero here again. We are doing our morning gratitudes. I no longer feel like garbage like I did yesterday, which is awesome. And yeah, just excited to kind of jump into the day, excited to go through our gratitudes together, and excited to kind of start everything off on the right foot. Some of these things that I wrote down are actually really cool too. So let's get into it. Number one is I just put down UFC 252. UFC 252 was last night. It was the last fight of a very long time champion. It was Daniel Cormier, who's, you know, lost and won championships, and that's fine, but he's also had a much larger role in the UFC in general, and he's been a commentator, he's been an interviewer, he's just done a lot. In fact, he's actually known as the guy who people would assume would take over for being president of the UFC if Dana White ever decided to step down or got sick or anything like that, which I think says a lot about his character. And as much as I guarantee you he's not done with the UFC, it is his last fight, which is really, it's poetic. And so, really nice. I'm not going to say who won, lost, or anything in any of the matches because there were some real big upsets last night, but I am going to leave that for you guys to be able to watch if you want to watch it. But moving on, number two, I put my past professions. I actually got ready just to mention the fact that I was a mortician and putting that down as something I'm grateful for, just because, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but I had someone reach out to me because of some issues going on that they thought I could help out with because of the fact that I was a mortician for such a long time. And it's obviously very different from what I do now, but the reasons why I do it are 100% the same. They say the three most stressful times in a person's life is marriage, moving, and death. And so I stayed in that family whenever I moved into real estate. The only difference is I get to work more now, which I enjoy. But she reached out and, had their problems. Reason why I put past professions in plural is because being a mortician was not my first job. My first job was McDonald's, and it was its own thing. It was weird, and McDonald's is that thing where I feel like everyone should work in fast food or retail at some point in their life, and I think that's part of why I put it there. So I learned a lot working at a McDonald's that I probably wouldn't have learned if I just jumped into, an actual professional environment versus, a first job type of environment. So I don't know. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I've done so much in what I've been able to do for work. Not necessarily saying I've done the most impactful stuff, although I'm working on making sure that I can. But I have a very diverse work history, which that I appreciate because it lets me help more people. And I'm glad that people think of me whenever they need help. So that's number two. Number three, I put getting interviewed by Joel. So Joel is also known as Mr. Corona, which a lot of you guys might know, and he does something very similar to what I've been starting doing, which is my Zoom interviews with different community leaders in the area. I was asked to be one of his live speakers next Wednesday, so I'll go over the exact date coming up soon, but I'm really excited to be able to do something like that. I have no idea what goes into it because I barely know what goes into my interviews, but I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to kind of share my thoughts and expand a lot on some things, or even just talk about some goofy things. I have fun just being a goofball, and I obviously like being on camera a little too much, so we're going to have fun with it, and I appreciate the fact that he reached out to me. So that's number three. Number four, I put new video series. I have the thought of... I see a lot of people asking me very, I wouldn't say generic questions, but very repetitive questions. Things like, details on what an appraisal is, or what a pre-inspection is, stuff like that. And a lot of them are very easy to answer, and so they're just like nuggets of information. And I could do, long videos of just going over these definitions, but I figured it'd actually help if I make a new video series that I do alongside stuff like this, because I won't stop being grateful and I won't stop writing them down. But every Wednesday, if I upload a video about me going over one of these definitions, whether they be, what is an appraisal, then it makes it to where when people look that stuff up on YouTube or through Google or something like that, it's easier to find, and you get someone who's explaining it versus I see whenever I look up that kind of stuff, see a lot of things about, definitions that are just written down. And I thankfully understand it, but I remember whenever I, first bought my first home, I didn't know a lot of these things, and trying to look into them, you are left subject to how much you can understand what you're reading versus having someone elaborate. And I feel like A lot of people learn really well through that, but I also know that a lot of people learn very well visually. And so if I can be the visual aspect of that learning, then I'm going to do it. And it gives me something else to be in front of a camera for, which I clearly have a weird obsession with. So that's number 4. I'm excited to start doing that, and I'll let you guys know how that goes. But number 5, I put having amazing mentors. Reason why I put that is just because, I've had a few mentors in real estate. I had a mentor whenever I worked at McDonald's, believe it or not, who I took a lot of pride from, and I still talk about to this day. And I'm still friends with him on Facebook. And I don't know how much he realizes that he had an impact on me, but he definitely was a big inspiration for always loving what you do instead of looking for some fancy title. Because we're talking about someone who loved what he did or does. And that was working at McDonald's. And so it was always that baffling thing of like, isn't McDonald's where you hate to work or where it's a stepping stone to work somewhere else? And no, this person genuinely loved what he did. And so it didn't matter that, he had this stigma about where he worked because he really loved what he was doing when he worked. So other people's opinions mattered less than his happiness. And that will always stick with me. Then everyone knows that my mentor, Denny Blades, over whenever I worked at funeral homes, I mean, that's probably mentor for life. Like, that's never going to go away. A lot of the things that I learned from him will stick with me up until the day I die. And so I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for him. So ultimately, there are some people that really, really matter to me that I won't be able to ever repay because of the fact that they changed me as a human being and they made me a better person. And so my way of trying to give back will be an indefinite way of trying to give back, and that's just by trying to be the best version of what they helped me become, and then doing everything I can to pay that forward to everyone else. So it's helping people when they have questions, doing things like the video series to help more people if I can help it, being there for people whenever they have issues or fears or something like that, even if it's not about the profession that I'm doing right now. There's a lot of things that I can do in order to help pay that forward for the people like the mentors I've had in the past. So I'm really grateful for that. That's probably the biggest thing. So that's it. That's my 5 things that I'm grateful for. My question for you guys goes into, what was your first job whenever you first started working? What was the first title you had, and what was the company that you worked for? And are you grateful for what that did for your future? Or is it a stepping stone to get to somewhere else? Are you grateful for that stepping stone, or was it a huge setback because it just stopped you from being able to do something else? Regardless, I want to know what it is. I want to know what your first job was. I want to know how you feel about that. I want to know where you are now and compared to that. What's your first job? What was your first title? Let's talk about that. Comment about that down below. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to all the mentors that I've had, and thank you to every past profession that I've ever had. And yeah, thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys later, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye.